For those of you who don't know me, by the way, I'm Hikaru. I'm a Wolf Boy VTuber. I stream IDV a lot. I've been peak tier on both Hunter and Survivor. I think I have like 34 stars in Survivor once, in Titan, and then like I just kind of sit at 25 in Hydra because it's a lot of work. But this is my opinion for the tier list for 2025. I make one of these like every single year, so I think it would be fun to do another one. Starting with Lucky Guy. Lucky Guy, I still feel like is pretty bad. I mean, like I can put him in B tier or C tier, but I feel like if there were any survivors that would go down to C tier, I would put Lucky Guy here. I forget where I put him last year. I have to check again. In my opinion, he's just like, yes, a jack of all trades, but I don't think that's what you need for a team. The only thing he has that's like better than most people is like his versatility, I guess. But now that there are survivors out there that can be versatile and also not have all the downsides of like the mediocre item usage, I think that like Lucky Guy is pretty mid. Here is I don't think like there's a ton to be said about Lucky Guy because the like all the items that you could pick out, yes, it's great to have any item that you need, but like if you needed a football, you only get like 40% of the football or like 50% of it, and you can't stun people with it. If you get the mech bot, you can't decode while you're off chair, or while you're on chair, or while you're downed. You can only mechanic can do that, and also you only get like 50% of the bot anyways. If you go, I don't know, coordinator, the stun lasts like a whole second less. So Lucky Guy is like pretty average. If you needed a gun or something, you might as well just go coordinator, right? So plus like coordinator has that like all the other passives that other survivors get. Like sure you avoid their downsides, but you don't get their upsides either. The fact that like coordinator speeds up a little bit around pallets, that's really nice to have. Or like forward stun for the football, like I said earlier. The little stuff that other survivors can have. Doctor, I would put her in like C tier also. Oh my god. I feel bad about putting like the early survivors down here. Cause like although Doctor is like weirdly good against a lot of hunters that aren't currently in the meta, she's gonna lose to all the meta hunters any day of the week. I don't see Doctor very often. She is just a little too weak. Like the only thing she does is try to win mind games under pallets, but it's still really, really weak against most hunters. Like a lot of hunters have a way to get around pallets. Like Weather Clerk can record you if you try to mind game her and just bully you through it. And can literally just stun you at the pallet and then hit you after it drops. Geisha can just go through the pallet. She doesn't have to worry about it. On top of that, like her pallet camping doesn't work against any of those super strong hunters either. Like Hullabaloo, Ivy, Goatman. I don't know, maybe Goatman. It would be kind of weird, but I don't trust it. Previous second doctor, this is such a valid spot for her. Yeah, I mean, like, a good doctor, I've seen doctors cook before, but I don't think, like, it's a huge result of her playing doctor. The only thing she can do really well is, like, soak a ton of damage, but I don't think that that's good because one, it gives the hunter presence, and two, if you mess up the harassment, it could be pretty bad. Or most of even like the mid-tier hunters probably have a way to deal with harassment, especially harassment that doesn't directly threaten the hunter that's picking up the survivor. So like a gardener can like break the chair, a cowboy can get the lasso, but the doctor literally just stands in front of you and that's it. Yeah, I'm sure there's really good doctor players out there, and I've seen some of them before. It's just that like I feel like there's better options out there. The lawyer, I would put him in A tier. Honestly, I thought he was an S, but like now that I think about it, the rotation super duper strong. But I feel like in certain maps or certain areas, if he doesn't get a really good head start, that he's pretty weak. Like the map is so good. It's actually so good for mind gaming the hunters. If you get a head start and you try to rotate them, lawyers like S tier rotations. And in terms of kiting, I think he would only be A tier though. But he would be like top of A tier. I still firmly believe that like Lawyer is a really strong survivor because there's still literally no downsides to him. But if you're against like a really chasey style hunter, like an Anne, I think he would still get cooked unless you're super good at dodging those cats. But then again, it's more reliant on the hunter messing up than the lawyer like doing a crazy play. The mind game would have to go insane here. But I do think lawyer has his spots in teams. Like having Z's give me the information that like, oh, the hunter's starting to chase you, I can early rotate. That's so useful to have. Otherwise I just jump onto Cypher and start Cypher rushing. I feel like that's how a lot of hunters get the early hits, that like you don't see them coming or they don't early rotate. So lawyer fixes that problem a lot. Thief, I don't know. Like, I don't really see Thief enough to have a good idea of him. He has his places. Yeah, like I've seen some Thief players that kind of go crazy with it. I personally have never fallen for it. I think that the trick that you do on Moonlit is very situational. But there are certain spots that Thief is kind of crazy in. For example, like if you've ever kited a Thief in the working carousel or like broken carousel area, the flashlight can actually make that area infinite. Like he can do an infinite kite there. And I think like not a lot of survivors can do that. So I don't think he's super great. Three flashlights is definitely super annoying. I don't think Thief is great. Like don't get me wrong, like anything B tier and below is like you can do it if you're super good at them, but there are better options out there. Excitement beats it out. I'm pretty sure like a lot of hunters can just dash past it. Like Anne's pretty good at countering it. But there are certain hunters that can't do anything about it. Like Clerk would get just destroyed by Thief if you're trying to trace him sometimes. There are certain hunters that like don't do well into Thief. Maybe sometimes he can make it work. But if he is B tier, bottom of B tier. So how I would categorize this, A is good in any situation. B is like situational, can work. C is probably like don't pick these characters. Or like Thief is like one trick ponies that maybe be able to make it work. I've seen it happen like a couple of times. And D is just like absolute garbage. Do not pick this character under any circumstances. So it's not like B tier is super bad, but it's not like it's super it's not like it's a completely useless character. If you just put like a flashlight in a window and you have the hunter vault it, like sometimes it gives you a get out of jail free card. So like I don't think Thief is that bad, but he's definitely not that great. Gardener, I would put above Thief, but under. I don't think I would put Gardener A tier. Her bubble is useful in certain circumstances, but like sometimes it's just a presence farm. It depends on like the map in the situation. If she is just straight up kiting, she doesn't have anything except her bubble to work with, which is okay. Like it's not that bad. But a lot of hunters don't really have to deal with it. Like it's so hard to get the bubble off while you're already kiting unless you have it pre-primed. So Gardener is quite weak in most situations, but I think she also still has her places. Like I've seen Gardener chair harassment go absolutely nuts. The amount of times that it actually happens is kind of rare, and especially a lot of good hunters will just deal with the Gardener while she's trying to break the chair. She has to go get super duper risky to get those chair harassments off if she wants to do it properly, when other people don't have to go through the same lengths. Like Prospector can just throw a magnet and wait for you to go to the chair while hiding behind a pallet. But Gardener has to like go to the chair and actually dismantle it. And if she uses her bubble, then she's not going to have it for the rescue. She's situational, but I can see where she would work. Having veterans is nice. In most other situations, like it's just her bubble kind of carrying her. Because like if how long does it last at the start of the game again? Like 50 seconds. If the hunter does chase you first, it's nice. It's super hard to get Gardener done properly, but I still think it's doable. Magician, I think I put him in A tier before, but I would probably put him in B tier again. I would put him under Gardener, but above Thief. I'm being a little bit more harsh because of all the new survivors that have been coming out lately are kind of crazy. So a lot of the older survivors that I'm like, we're starting with the oldest to the newest survivors, I think. I've been kind of deranking them lower and lower because of I just haven't seen the situations work. Like the invisibility is really nice. If you're really good at body blocking, like with the clones, these can also be really useful. But a lot of hunters don't fall for the mind games anymore. Yeah, if you listen really closely to when he uses his wand, you can hear the footsteps and which direction they go into. And this works with a lot of survivors too. You can hear First Officer, you can hear Faro Lady when they both go invisible, and you can kind of tell which direction they're in. So it's really hard to juke the hunter nowadays, unless you're like kind of sick with it. I think that Magician, like he gets 3 of them, and it's okay. Like hunters that are really paying attention won't fall for his tricks though. Like I've seen it work though. His Magician wands are strong in certain situations, and they are good at fooling the hunter in certain situations. So that's why I put him in B tier. Explorer A tier. I would put him under Lawyer. Mostly because he's like so hard to find. He's if you play Explorer right, which is just like hiding, he can really devastate a lot of hunters. Like he gets around Clerk pretty easily if you just like hide, do your thing, and then you just like pop a cipher under their nose. He's like situationally really good also, but at the same time, like he's got enough gimmicks to make him really annoying to deal with. And he can like kind of force out draws just by hiding, or like he can go in for a rescue. It depends how good you are at hiding. His versatility is like really good enough to put him into A tier though. Like there's just enough getting around stuff to put him there. But it's really dependent on your hiding. I think like in most situations too, most hunters will never chase an explorer first because he is so hard to find. And if you try to look for an explorer and you don't find him, that's like a free 60-second kite because of how far you have to rotate to somebody else. So he's probably like one of the safest decoders out there. And I generally think that makes him pretty strong. Yeah, I don't think any much more needs to be said about him. Merc, I still think is S tier. He's probably one of the best rescuers still. He gets banned quite frequently. There's only like a few hunters that counter him out there. The clown counters him pretty hard. Any of the top tier hunters kind of beat him out pretty early too. But in most situations, like who don't they beat, right? If I was going to have a rescuer, I think Mercenary is still your best bet. There's almost no way you can go wrong with Merc. Even if you terror shock him, he still gets the rescue off. Which in a lot of situations, if you can pull off that 60-second kite, it's still making the game salvageable for a tie. I'm pretty sure I made that happen a lot of times. Even though I do mess up from time to time still, he's just so safe as a pick because of how long his free insta tie turner on himself lasts for that it makes him so worth it. Priestess, I still think Priestess is S tier, but not super high S tier anymore. I feel like a lot of people don't know her lineups anymore because of how often she's banned. It's kind of weird. Like if you use Priestess just straight up, like I portal to get away from you, I think Priestess is still very good. But I don't think that she is the top best survivor anymore. Mostly because she has all thumbs, which makes her decoding speed a little bit less. Her long portal's super overpowered, by the way. I just haven't seen a lot of super good priestesses lately that know the tricks. Like, if you've ever seen those TikTok videos of priestesses like forcing hunters through portals by putting them like in special locations. Yeah, there's a lot of cool tricks you can do with her that I just don't see a lot of survivors doing. So I think that she is still incredibly strong, one of the strongest survivors, but you need to utilize her properly. If you don't do that, I think she would just be A tier. And also, she's not good on certain maps. Like Arms Factory, I still think she's kind of weak on. She's pretty much the safest rescuer for getting into basement. Uh, yeah, aside from Gravekeeper, I think she's even safer than Gravekeeper though. So yeah, her tricks are situational, but just like a straight portal from Moonlit is still really strong. And support from a priestess, if you have it, is still really strong. So I still think she's S tier though. I don't know if there's too many people that would disagree with me here. Maybe some of the top tier teams don't think so, because like hunters also have their tricks, but I personally think like in regular upper rank tier, if you have a well communicated coordinated team, priestess is still incredibly strong. Coordinator, I would put at the top of A tier. Maybe like middle of A tier actually. Maybe under lawyer. Like she's pretty straightforward as a survivor. She's got like a little bit of kiting help with her pallet speed. Her gun is incredibly strong, but a lot of hunters will just take excitement. And plus you have to hit your shots. I've seen a lot of survivors miss their shots. I think she's pretty good overall. There's certain couple things that make her a little on the weaker side. Such as like her decoding speed is like as bad as mechanics when someone's on the chair. So a lot of the times I feel like she's forced to rescue. Like if someone gets down super early, she kind of has to rescue. Otherwise her decoding speed is going to be non-existent. Plus like if you're forced to rescue and then they also have excitement, your gun is useless. So in a lot of cases, coordinator is kind of weak. She doesn't have a lot of ways like mercenary just to get to the chair other than her gun. I do think she's good though. Like she can at least get to the chair with her gun, because you either force a basic or you shoot your gun and they excitement in early and you still force a basic. Mechanic, I don't know. There's so much controversy around this character. I'd put her in A tier still. I think that she's really gimmicky in the way that she forces draws. She's A tier, yeah. Like, I don't think that mechanic will win you every game if you get her or anything. Like, she definitely isn't. Because she's a very, very easy chase. Her bot can go very wrong if you don't get it off right. But if you let her decode and just like double decode two ciphers at the same time, she is so crazy. Like, I get why people say nerf mechanic, but she's not gonna like win you the game. She will, at the very least, force draws with just her bot. Like, if you do chase her first and her bot's out, she can still force a draw. Like, it's so crazy how hard it is to like win a match against a mechanic because of that. Just that one mechanic, game mechanic. Oh, yeah, I don't think a lot more needs to be said about mechanic. Yes, her decoding debuff is really bad if a lot of people get hurt, but I still think that overall she's pretty decent. Like, you can still make her work with the early rotations and the if you get a support at all, or if you just get your bot out. Like, you only have to do one thing: hide your bot early. And if they hit your bot, yes, it gives them presence, but it gives you a lot of time to extra rotate away. Solid. Forward. A tier. The amount of harassment that he can do with his football is really, really strong. It's just that, like, a lot of the meta hunters deal with him so easily. Like, Ivy can just scare you out of your football. You can, like, if there's an Ivy, forward is cooked. You can't do anything. If it's like an Anne, if she gets the cats on you, you're also cooked. If it's like a hermit, you're also cooked. Like, there's so many hunters that just kind of counter him that I don't think he's super worth it in a lot of situations. But at the very least, he can kite very well. Like, you can use his forward football to kite. In terms of his harassment, it's strong, but it's too risky. Yeah, plus the decoding speed debuff, super, super high. But if you try to chase him first, you better be prepared as a hunter, because he's very hard to catch. So I do think he'll work well, like, as a rescuer, but honestly, like, if you wanted a rescuer, just go mercenary. Or, you know, an actual rescuer character. He's kind of like a harasser that can double up as a rescuer if you needed to. That's probably where I'd put him. Pretty good in most situations. He's just really hard to play also. On top of being hard to play, he's kind of there. Is he worse than Mechanic? I would say so. Mechanic is just so solidly an A tier. Yeah. It's kind of hard to say. Mind's Eye. Okay, if there was any survivor that's going to put in D tier, it's Mind's Eye. She's just so bad, you guys. Mind's Eye is like so bad, but like for those of you who try to make her work, I get it. Like, she's fun to play, to see how well you can do against a hunter, but a good hunter will never fall for her tricks. She's only good against like certain hunters, but literally anyone else can do the same thing. The cane is okay. It's kind of whatever. It doesn't even slow down the hunter while they're moving. It only slows down interaction speed. And you can't really see the hunter at all times if they're too far away. It would be nice if you could see them like trying to vault a window or something, so that you could be like, okay, he's vaulting a window. I can tap my cane to support a little bit, but you never see that. Or like he's breaking a pallet, I tap my cane. You don't see it. The only time that you can guarantee it is when they're picking up and sharing a survivor, which I'm like, it'll buy you an extra 2 seconds, and I don't think that's really worth it. She's probably the worst survivor at getting chased. I mean, like, she has that little speed boost. It's not anything. The speed boost is like pretty worthless. It can get you out of a sticky situation, but other than that, like, it's on a 40-second cooldown. And also, she's not really good at hiding. When she taps her cane, the hunter can hear the general location of Mind's Eye. You're tapping it from a corner of the map, and I'm in the middle section that can cut you off from any direction. You might get caught just by tapping your cane. So I don't think she's very good. Perfumer, I would say A tier. If I do give her A tier, bottom of A tier. Because she's like surprisingly good against certain hunters. Like, I feel like she's actually a decent counter to Goatman. With having 3 perfumes, the thing about Goatman is like he's so hard to mind game, but if you just take the hits and perfume them, then it's kind of incredibly worth it, in my opinion. I think that like perfumed is so strong, but you have to be good with the perfumes. Like, it works in most 2-story areas that just buy you a little bit of distance, because the hunters have to respect you being able to perfume back upstairs. The only bad thing about her is that it feeds the hunter a lot of presence if you're not also super good at kiting. So I do think that she's situationally good, but at the same time there aren't a lot of downsides to her, so I don't see why like you couldn't pick her. She's okay at rescuing. Her kiting is like okay, it is pretty good. Her decoding speed, she is regular. I mean, like, I don't see any huge downsides to her except the healing speed thing. Let's be honest, if you get cooked that early, then you're probably cooked anyways. So I think that Perfumer is an A tier. Cowboy. I would put him in like top of A tier. There's so if you you know what? I think I used to have him in S tier, but now I'm just putting him in A tier because like my perspective ever since changing to like mostly Survivor playing for like a whole year, just playing with like Season Santi and stuff, of Survivors has changed so much. I think that Cowboy would be A tier though, not exactly S tier. I don't think he's mid. I don't think so because the lasso can actually go so hard, and he's relatively safe and hard to catch. Like if forward is A tier, Cowboy is A tier. But I think like Cowboy's better than forward because he can harass from a safer distance. Not a lot of debuffs as far as I know on Cowboy. Like if he does have all thumbs, I don't really feel it. And there's some certain areas in the map that make him incredibly powerful. Like there's literally spots named the Cowboy Corner. I know a lot of people are saying like he's really easy to juke. If he hides in a corner the same way that like Prospector can hide in a corner, he can get those from certain areas that you never see. And at the very least, he can make you drop. Any hunter can make you drop if you're just not careful with them. You have to have really good reaction speed and also see where he's coming from to avoid the lasso. I mean, like top tier hunters do have that and they do predict it, but I feel like a really good Cowboy can give you a run for your money still. But actually, I don't think he's S tier because like he is jukeable and he is not that hard to deal with if you do try to get him. So, you know, he's kind of in the same category as forward. Dancer, A tier. There's gonna be a lot of A tier survivors out here. I feel like she's kind of hidden OP. Her music boxes are actually really, really strong. It's just hard to find teammates that like, especially in solo queue, that utilize them properly. Because you'll like drop your music boxes down, and then a lot of people won't even kite to it. Like the reason why she's not S tier is because like these music boxes aren't like map wide or anything. They're usually in a very particular space, and the fact that she gets 3 of them, I think is really crazy. You can just drop 3 of your music boxes, like all 3 slow boxes in one area, and if the hunter doesn't break them, it's like a free get out of jail free card. And if he does break them, that's like a free 30 seconds on top of your kite. Because those boxes are a menace, especially in strong areas. Like if you put them all around the ruins area in hospital or like the middle section of Eversleeping, it just buys you so much extra time. If you do break them, like she can use them as like kind of like a pallet to transition to another area. You can use it to spin out of. Plus she has the Darkwoods area because there's so much verticality on that map that she can drop down from the vines area and she gets that little movement speed boost. So it's kind of crazy, like how much versatility she has. So I would still put her in A tier. I don't think she's S though because like the amount of support she can actually offer is kind of limited. Oh, just as a quick disclaimer, by the way, the survivors in the same category are going to be relatively similar. Like I don't really discriminate too much between like is Perfumer better than forward, more so that Perfumer is better than Gardener, I would say. So just keep that in mind. Seer, S tier. Seer is easily S tier. One of the best survivors. Like, I know they just nerfed him recently, but I don't think the nerf was big enough. I don't think there's any situation in which you can go wrong with Seer. Having the information of where the hunter's spawning and who the hunter is at the very start of the match is so strong. It allows for the early rotations, kind of like a lawyer does. The owl itself, so good against single hit hunters. Like he's just a hard counter to a lot of people. Eli, S tier. I wish I was better at him. The only thing like in solo queue is miscommunication that can really make him mess up. But stacks of 4 that have a really good seer on their team that know when the attacks are coming or can like spectate when you call for it, that is a crazy seer. Like he can help you transition to new areas. His characters that can support map wide, I feel like are really, really strong. Like decent support. Actually eating a hit for you. I think that's kind of crazy. There's almost no situation when Seer is bad. S tier characters are definitely characters that's like most situations, like 90% of them, you are good in. So I would put Seer pretty high up there. Embalmer, hear me out, bottom of A tier. He's kind of like Mechanic in the way that he can force a draw. He's bottom of A tier. I think that like he can force a draw. If you guys have seen how Embalmer plays, the coffin is just kind of good. If I were to rate just his ability, the coffin is probably one of the strongest abilities in the game because of how unique it is and how much game changing it is at the end of the game. I think that Embalmer's like himself is quite weak. He doesn't really have any kiting potential. I've seen a lot of Embalmers just like take full kite and then rescue yourself on second chair. But the thing is, like, if you chase an Embalmer, you have to finish him off because if he gets free on the first rescue, he's going to have a second coffin to work with. And if you don't get rid of the coffin, he can upright just win a game. I see a lot of people in chat not believing me, but if I if I get S badge Embalmer and if you play him at high tier, I feel like if you do play him in high tier, you can force draws with him. But he's just so gimmicky. Like I could put him B plus. I don't. I'd have to rethink how I categorize these because all these characters, right here, have a really high potential to win a game. But Embalmer, I would say, has a really high potential to draw the game. He would be like right between here, bottom of A tier. I think I'll still keep him there. His ability itself is just so crazy. Prospector, S tier. I still think I'm a firm believer in Prospector being S tier. There's no downsides to Norton. His stun is so incredibly powerful, especially if you get a good one off. And he gets them back so fast. Like when I'm kiting as Norton, it's a year before I get another magnet. But when other people are kiting as Norton, 3 magnets all the time, every single time. It's so crazy. Yeah, granted you have to be good with the magnets. I think that like Prospector is definitely really strong. He definitely belongs in S tier because there's no downsides to him. What they thought was a downside was like giving him more of the harder skill checks. It just makes it, if you don't mess up the skill check, it just gives him extra decoding. Like that's crazy. At high tiers, making the area of which you miss the skill check smaller doesn't do a thing because most people hit the perfect skill check anyways most of the time. Patty, Enchantress. I would put her in A tier, lower A tier. I've seen Patty's kind of cook. But it's low A tier. Her stun is like good for kiting herself. Like there's a lot of situations where she's not good. Like if I were to put a cutoff, if there was an A minus tier, I would put her there. She's not that bad. I don't think. Yeah, her range does suck, but there's only like a certain amount of hunters that can't work around that range. Like Anne works around it pretty easily. Hermit works around it pretty easily. She's pretty good against like a lot of hunters that can't really catch up to you. Like she'll be strong against Nightwatch. I mean, everybody is. I don't think that she has the tools to put her anywhere above this category. So if there were an A minus tier, I think I would be putting her here. Yeah, Anne does counter her hard, but it's not like I'm judging all these survivors about how good they are against Anne. It's about like the hunter like population in general. So I think that like in general, these are good against most hunters. There are certain survivors out here that are bad against like just the meta, and there are certain survivors that are good against just the non-meta. Like Doctor, crazy against Hermit if she's not first chase. Crazy against certain chip hunters. I feel like she would work against a lot of situations. But against like the meta and then like the mid-tier hunters is where I'm categorizing most of these people at. Petty in the same tier as Lawyer and Forward. Yeah, like I said, if there was an A minus tier, I would put her down there. The cutoff point would be right here. I might highlight that point in my video because it's so hard to differentiate these tiers. Wildling, A tier. His harassment is just too crazy. I would put him in like middle of A tier. He's definitely a strong character. I don't think that, I mean, his decoding is utter garbage and his healing is, I think, slower than normal too. He's really bad at hiding because his boar sticks out like a sore thumb. But like, man, is he the hardest survivor to catch in the game. I think he's like definitely A tier situationally. Okay, so he's pretty bad against Gamekeeper, right? He's pretty bad against certain hunters. I think that Wildling is still in general one of the best one of the better survivors out there. He's not the best. I don't think I would put him S tier yet. because the decoding speed debuff doesn't make up for the lack of everything else that he has. Yeah, his rescue is amazing. His harassment's pretty amazing. He's very, very tanky, which is nice. Most people will never chase a wildling first. So I think that generally makes him pretty safe. But you have to be good with him. A lot of wildlings out there will get on their board too late or too early, and that will mess them up. But if you time it right, he's so hard to deal with. Wildling is bad against hunters who easily gain distance to catch up quick. I think he's faster than almost every single hunter. There's only like, what, Breaking Wheel that's faster. Geisha can kind of catch up, but barely. Even if you catch up to him, though, you still have to get him off his board. That's 2 hits. And then you have to hit him 2 more times because he's a full survivor. It's just super obnoxious dealing with them. You're better off chasing someone else. So, like, yeah, you could catch up to him easily, but you're still going to get kited. Just by, like, the amount of time it takes to catch up to him and the amount of time it takes to down him. So, yeah. Definitely middle of A tier. Acrobat, S tier. He's still crazy. A lot of dumb tricks you can do with him. Especially on, like, Moonlit River Park, where, like, he doesn't have to take windows, so it's really hard to terror shock him. He doesn't even have to take pallets if he doesn't want to. He's got 3 bombs to work with, and he gets an extra one. Like, they all do these crazy things. I think, like, the white bomb is kind of meh. It works in certain situations. If you use the bombs correctly, they're so strong. Acrobat, still crazy. He's peak tier survivor for sure. Like, there's no situation where you don't need a net, or where Acrobat would just, like, be bad against someone. I don't think there's anyone Acrobat's bad against, actually, that, like, isn't also good against everybody else. Yes, you can catch up to an with Anne, like, curve around his stuff, but, like, she kind of does that to everybody. Like, the only one who's really good at countering Anne is, like, Prospector and then maybe a couple of other people. But in general, these survivors are definitely the best, including Acrobat. I don't think a lot of people are going to contest that one. FO, I think I would also put FO in S tier. Yes, he does have his counters. Again, Anne does counter First Officer. But the Pocket Watch is so powerful. It gives him a free borrowed time. That has straight up won games. Like, if you can force a rescue like a mercenary can, I think that's still crazy strong. And, like, if I didn't have a mercenary on my team, I think First Officer would be a close second in terms of, like, best rescuer. Anyone that can just, like, force it, especially get to the chair from far away, the first ding of your pocket watch, it's like half the map sometimes. It's so big. It's really hard to mess up as First Officer. Yeah, if you're a good First Officer, your team will love you for rescuing. Yes, you can still get terror shocked, but, you know, it is what it is sometimes. Yeah, his decoding speed debuff isn't that bad. And also, once he uses the pocket watch, it does go up just by a little bit. It's a teensy bitsy bit, but it's better than nothing. And also, he's so hard to first chase, unless you're an Anne. He dies so slowly on chair. I think he, like, has built-in snooze, and then a lot of officers will also take snooze. So if you do get him on chair, you're gonna be sitting there for quite a bit. You can, like, straight up just win games of him being on chair, and, like, his passive just ticks away while your survivors are chipping away at the cipher. Barmaid, A tier. Definitely middle of A tier. Yeah, like with a lot of other survivors, I don't think that there's a lot of downsides to Barmaid. Yes, the decoding speed debuff, the permanent decoding debuff after you drink the drink is like, it's nothing. It's like 1 to 2% or something. And even if it's like 3%, that's still nothing. And on top of that, the trade-off for a full health state is crazy. Like, that's so much healing. And she gets 2 of them. Man, if she had 3 of them, I'd put her in S tier. Yeah, she's got the speed doubling to kite out her first drink. If you can cut out your first drink, that's usually, like, already a 60-second kite. Yes, you can give it to certain characters. Like, you can't give it to Little Girl or... what else is on here that can drink it? Mind's Eye. But, like, those are lower tier characters anyways. You're not going to have them in here. I shouldn't say that. Little Girl is, like, situational. I feel like even though you can't pass it to certain characters, like, these characters you can pass it to, minus Coordinator, and that's where she gets her value from. Yeah, I think Barmaid is definitely A tier. Like, there aren't a lot of situations where she's bad. Unless it's just, like, a hard pursuit hunter and she gets chased down super early. But if you're a good Barmaid that knows how to rotate, you can buy yourself a lot of time. Postman, I'd put him in A tier as well. Maybe, like, lower A tier, but not bottom of A tier. Ever since they gave him that buff, if Postman didn't have the Wick buff that stunned, I'd put him in B tier maybe, or upper A tier, but because of the buff, maybe middle of A tier. The Postman, like, once again, survivors that can support safely from across the map and don't have to do anything else, I feel like have a special place in A tier. That is so annoying. Like, you can safely support from anywhere. Those survivors are kind of crazy. And that's why there's so few of them. It's going to be really difficult to deal with some of those letters sometimes. He can give himself windows. He can give himself a movement speed boost. He can give himself like rescue letter. He's like versatility that you need, but better, because the those letters help so much actually. Sometimes they don't. And you know what? Sometimes the meta hunters are really good against Postman. But I think this was one of the easiest S badges that I've ever gotten because he's secretly kind of strong. I still think that he's strong. The Wickington has saved my life so many times. Yeah, his decoding is pretty good. I don't think he's as weak as a lot of hunters make him out to be. Gravekeeper. I'd put him in like top of A tier. Maybe like upper A tier. I think that Andrew is pretty good. Funny enough, he counters the hunters that like Jose doesn't counter. Whereas Anne is really good against First Officer. She's really bad against Gravekeeper because he can just go under to dodge the cats. This going underground like saves you so much time, especially if you like go the full duration of the shovel, because that thing is like 30 seconds long. The only thing is like he's kind of an easy chase first, since unless you like pre-drop pallets and stuff, you're gonna feed the hunter a lot of presents as she goes after you. His rescue speed is like the fastest in the game. When you come out of shovel form, you get that extra speed boost. And also, actually, with the buff, you can push hunters a little bit with his ability. I think that makes him definitely like top of A tier. I don't know if I would put him S. You can also cancel teleports with Andrew's new buff. Can you? I know it's a displacement, but it doesn't force people to drop. It's like the old Wick. It slows you down, but it doesn't force you to drop. If they had made that stun, S tier for sure, but that's not the case for him. He's pretty safe, like definitely upper A tier. Yeah, again, don't pay attention too much. Like generally, like here is upper A tier, here's like middle A tier, and then here's like bottom of A tier. Prisoner, A tier, middle of A tier. Prisoner is kind of weak actually in terms of getting chased, but his functionality is like so good. Being able to decode ciphers from across the map is like, it's so frustrating for a lot of hunters that are like, okay, I'll just camp this cipher. And then Prisoner just finishes it. Finishing ciphers early is so good. I feel like Prisoner's underrated for a lot of people because although he's like relatively easy to chase, I think that what his ability is good enough to like balance that out if you don't chase him. Because if you think about it, like he doesn't have to move from one cipher to another. The amount of time it takes to travel to a new cipher, like other decoders have to do, is like undone by just decoding from your one cipher and connecting to another. It saves you so much time, and plus he gets a decoding speed buff from the two connected ciphers. He can pop certain ciphers, like if you're a clerk and trying to cut off someone else's cipher, if you're trying to like lock down one of them, Prisoner decoding can go through Wax Artist, it can go through Clerk, it can go through like a lot of different people that are meant to lock down ciphers. So like pushing a cipher is really good against Joseph. It's really good against like a lot of hunters that like can't deal with Cipher Rush. I feel like he's good with. Not to mention, like if I'm decoding a cipher and the first cipher I'm helping decode is like a Prospector, we can finish the cipher super quick in like 60 seconds, and he can go harass. Just throw 2 magnets on the hunter and then call it a day and start a new cipher afterwards. He's really good in a lot of situations. The only downside is, like, the only thing he's got is his taser. Other than that, he's kind of like raw kiting. Luckily, the static field around the cipher is like pretty good as well, but it's not that big. So, I think Prisoner is pretty good. Just like how Wickington makes him drop, like Prisoner's Shock also makes him drop. So I think like having that little threat has also won us some games sometimes. So yeah, Prisoner's definitely pretty good. Entomologist, I would put her in A tier, like also middle of A tier. I don't know, she's not super duper crazy because nowadays the newer hunters are just kind of overpowered. I didn't know Sangria can just go right through her bees, but Geisha can't. Like, what's the deal with that? And then like Night Watch can drag her off her bees, but it's a Night Watch, so it doesn't really matter too much. She's like situationally, like if she didn't have anything, gelling up the windows, having her bees, like the bees are super strong. Gelling up the windows is okay. It's not like the greatest thing ever, but it's still a plus. She has no decoding speed, a debuff. The only thing that's bad about her is that you can kind of see her if she tries to mind game you through a wall because of the what's it's called like pheromones or something. I think she's really, really strong against a lot of hunters. Like those bees, it can block Axe Boy, it can block Jack, it can just block doorways. And I think that makes Melly really powerful in a lot of cases. Plus, if she's supporting with her bees, it's support from across the map. So I think that Melly is just like pretty good. But you know, she has like a few specific counters. Like she's not gonna win against Anne. She's not gonna win against like an opera singer. She's not good in every situation as much as like a prospector is, or like a priestess is, or like a seer is. But she's definitely good in most situations. Painter. Oh god, this is gonna be controversial. I think Painter's like B tier. Maybe C tier. I don't know. I just think Painter's like pretty garbage as a character. I don't know if I'd put him in the same tier as Mind's Eye, but I would definitely say that like, do you know how many times people have used the painting and they're just like absolutely useless? You can even use the painting itself as hit cancels or like attack recovery cancels. The paintings are just so bad. Why would you play Painter when you can just play Prospector? Like, I have to go and run towards the hunter, get a good look at his face, and then paint the painting for like, what is it, 7 to 8 seconds? Whereas Prospector just gets his magnets. He has infinite magnets he can generate. Whereas Painter gets 2 paintings. He gets 2. And that's it. And the hunter has to look at the painting. And even if he does look at the painting, it gets beaten out by excitement. The only reason why this character can work a little bit is if you chase him first and he has full kite. Like, that's the only situation I can see Painter working as. But he's just so easy to get caught in. Painter itself, there are better options. If you look and see, this is like, there are better options section. This is the worst. This is the worst. Like, anybody is a better option. C tier is like, there are better options for what you're trying to do. B tier is like, yes, there are also better options, but you know, you can do it better, I guess. I don't know. There aren't a lot of upsides. If he just like, maybe give him speedy decoding, or maybe give him like better rescuing. I don't know. The painters are just Batter. Okay, I firmly believe Batter is S tier. Yes, he has a decoding speed debuff, but oh my god, is he just like better forward? Being able to harass the hunter from a range is so strong. Every time, like, Batter, S tier. Yeah, he puts the fear into the hearts of hunters everywhere. There's a couple that like don't mind him, the super meta ones, like Ivy doesn't really care about him. The Hullabaloo, I feel like, doesn't really care about him either. But man, Batter is super obnoxious. If there was a best harassment, a good batter will cook you for sure. A good batter will definitely cook you for sure. I think a good batter in solo queue will destroy you. Especially for some hunters out there. Hullabaloo is countered by batter. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. He counters certain hunters you don't think would counter them. There's only a couple of hunters that are like really good against him. But it's like few and far between. Like Ivy is probably the only one that can deal with him super easily. I don't think there's too many downsides. Like, yes, his decoding is pretty bad, but like if he gets his harassments off, he's the craziest survivor, I think. He's one of the craziest. How many times did a batter hit me, but I didn't care and I still got him? See, that's the thing, right? There are survivors, like, how many times has Norton missed his magnets on me? Or how many times has an Acrobat flopped his kite or his bomb? Or how many times has, like, First Officer flopped his rescue? I'm talking about, like, super high tier survivors that, in theory, their abilities are really strong based on how easy and how hard they are to use. Because, like, in theory, if batter hits you and gets all the harassment off, he's probably one of the hardest to deal with. I love to harass him because they get nervous. Yeah, like, even just holding the bat up there makes a lot of hunters nervous and second guess themselves. Yes, you can break the balls, but there's 3 of them. There's 3 balls, and if you do take your time to break them, he's gonna get at least 60 some seconds off of you. All 3. You have to break all 3. And if you don't break them, he'll pick them up. There's only 3? Yes, only 3. That's still 3. And if he gets them off properly, he gets so much distance. In terms of supporting harassment, and in terms of kiting himself, I would say he's definitely S tier. Toy Merchant, middle of A tier. I still think that like a lot of the trick locations for her are kind of crazy. Like there are certain hunters that don't care for it. Hullabaloo doesn't care. Like Sangria can just catch up. A lot of hunters can just catch up to her nowadays. But if you know her trick locations, like I'm sure you've seen me set up the catapult outside of hospital, it kind of gives a lot of hunters a run for their money. There's not like a ton of situations where she's super bad at. It's only like her glider is so good. But again, if there's a hunter that's just faster than her, like when I play Breaking Wheel, you can get your distance. The only amount of time that you have kiting is the amount of time you're in the air. So Torment, like, yeah, I don't know. If you know her trick spots though, she's just so powerful. You have to know where to place her stuff. The issue is like a lot of the times, especially in solo queue, most of the time people are trapped in the locations that they're at, and the hunters don't let you rotate over to the catapult. And the catapults are usually like only really strong for other survivors in certain locations. But other than that, I think that she's pretty decent. I mean, like there's not a lot of downsides to her. She gives a free item to one of your fellow survivors. She can be played as like anything really. She's not a bad rescuer either. Patient, I think I would put Patient S tier. He's like worse Acrobat, but he can like the fact that he can do the Acrobat things is kind of crazy. Put Patient down? No, why? Like he's kind of crazy with kiting. If you think about it, like he can do all the trick spots that Toy Merchant can do by himself. It's not support, but I think that Patient's S tier. 3 hooks and he's done? Yeah, but like if you hook into certain spots, there's get out of jail free cards. Like if you hook up into factory in Leo's memory, or if you hook like through the window in the hospital in Birdcage, like there's so many spots where he can just get out of jail free. I think if you have get out of jail free cards, you pretty much upper A tier, if not S tier. I don't think he has a big decoding speed debuff, if any. He doesn't have that. He pairs really well with Psychologist. He makes a good rescuer. Like literally, there's a reason why a lot of people take Tide on Patient, and that also take Tide on Acrobat, because they're just so hard to catch. The hooks, if you use them properly, get you so much value. Other than that, I don't think there's too many things like that are bad about Patient. If anything, like lower S tier because like he doesn't offer too many support abilities, but him as a character and his ability to kite is definitely, that's what he's best at. He's a really good kiter if you just use your hooks properly. Ada, I would also put S tier. Honestly, I had my doubts about Ada. She's like too solid as a character, or if not like top of A tier maybe. She's too solid. Like she's a raw kiter, yes. I just think that there's like no downsides to her as well. The thing is like you can chase her early and she's a raw kiter, but the stress levels, you have to get a very early hit on her if you want to down her early. Otherwise she just kind of forces you to wait out your stuff. If you catch her and she's in a strong area, it's longer than 60 seconds just because of how long you have to wait for her stress to come off of. Like you don't even have to kite that hard with her because most hunters have to wait out your stress if you don't want to give her a free rebound. That's like what, 15 seconds all on its own. If you hit her and she's already done 45 seconds, the next 15 are free. And plus her whistle is like surprisingly strong, especially if you want to keep like her combinations with a lot of these characters are really good. I think her whistle is really underrated. If you have like a good rescuer, like a proper team comp, Ada would be there for sure. I think she's used quite frequently in Koa as well, like, or in just tournament play. Ada was like, she's just a really solid character. If you chase her first, it's almost like a guaranteed draw, unless you like really get her early. And if you don't chase her first, she can be a menace, being able to heal you from across the map. I think that, maybe not S tier, but definitely A tier. The only reason why I don't put her in S tier is because like she doesn't have a gimmick that can make her infinitely stronger than all the other survivors. Novelist, B tier. I hate to say it, but like he doesn't have a lot of, his switcheroo is like kind of bad. It's okay for like certain situations, but honestly, they're very situational. If you swap with someone and they're like under a pallet or something, yeah, you get a free pallet on them, but he only gets one of those. You have to recharge it, and kind of takes a while, especially if the hunter isn't directly looking at you. Hunters that really know what they're doing can prevent you from your page up. Like the swapping thing, does it help you get to chair sometimes? I guess if you want to use him as a rescuer. He's in the there are better options category. But he's not like the worst character ever. A lot of people can make him work. Pre-nerf Orpheus. Pre-nerf Orpheus, I feel like I would still give him B tier. Because it was kind of an interesting situation where, like, what if it's a Naiad? You know, you just swap she can just walk you on top of a puddle. I remember doing that. Like, Novelists would just swap me while I'm playing Naiad, and I just walk them into my abyss, and they're just cooked anyways. Novelist isn't that special or anything. He definitely seems fun to play, especially with all like the little tricks you can do, especially with like combos. If you're with like a cowboy or something, I've seen that combo go off pretty hard. Like just swapping the hunter into pallet, double harassment, he's really powerful. I don't think a lot of situations call for that. And especially if you chase him first, he's like, he swaps you once and then you're kind of done. Until you get your next page. It just takes him too long to generate a page. I feel like it takes him as long as it takes Seer to generate an owl. Little girl, if there was a B plus tier, I would put her there. Okay, a lot of people are probably gonna hate me for this, but I think little girl's like A minus, B plus. Hear me out, okay? Little girl is kind of unique in that she has a lot of crazy. Her abilities are kind of crazy. Little girl over Gardener, I think so. If I were to rate whose abilities are stronger, she has her bubble. Little girl has 3 pages to work with, but she also has an ability that lets her latch onto people where you don't have to kite yourself. She can also teleport across the map. Teleporting across the map is so good on like Moonlit and Lakeside, or like just the really large map that it takes you forever to get across. If you're like not being chased at endgame, she can teleport to the gate that's being opened. She can force draws pretty easily if she's just not kiting. Teleporting and body blocking, like, yeah, she can do that too. But that's not the reason why you play her. Like, if you're a hermit or something and you're chasing someone that a little girl is attached to, I'll tell you what, it's a nightmare. You can get the stun off, but she'll still push you away. It pretty much blocks a whole stun with her ability. The only thing like that she's bad at is like taking the first kite herself. But a little girl, like, if you just put her in a hospital or put her somewhere that's like hard to chase in, I feel like little girl is stronger than Gardener. I think that little girl still belongs in like A minus tier. People give her too much like crap for, I don't know why. Because there's a lot of bad little girls out there, but there's also some little girls that are like absolutely crazy. Have you ever seen like Rilakuma, who's the #1 little girl player, cook with her? There are a lot of situations. It's really gimmicky, but I would say it's on the same gimmick level as Embalmer. So that's why I put her down there. Weeping Clown, I would say it's S tier. Weeping Clown's kind of crazy. Like, the ability for him to get out of jail free card is like, it's also up there with a lot of the other survivors. And at the same time, he himself is like really good at getting away from most hunters. Like, I guess not Breaking Wheel, and I guess not like, and maybe. If you just use your rockets properly, no one can catch this guy. Like, maybe another clown can catch you. That would be really funny. Clown on clown in action. Weeping Clown is hidden OP. A lot of people don't think he's OP, but he's actually hidden OP. He can do it all. He can harass, he can rescue, he can kite, he can support. The only thing he can't do really well is decoding, but like, who cares when you can do all the other stuff really well? Weeping is not all that. Okay, well, if you try to 1v1 a Weeping Clown, I guarantee you he will 3-cipher kite you. I guarantee you. A lot of people who try to get a Weeping Clown, like, there are certain characters who can do nothing to him. Clerk can't do nothing. Let me see. Hellenberg can't do nothing. Feaster can't do nothing. Joseph can't do nothing. Like, a lot of these hunters can't do nothing against a Weeping Clown when he just gets on his rocket. Yeah, he can just transition anywhere he wants for free with just 1 rocket. And he gets 3 of them. Crazy how he gets 3 of them. Professor, A tier. I would put him at like upper A tier because he's kind of crazy. Like, if you hit your scales, you're crazy. But if you don't hit your scales, you're nothing. The scales theoretically are like a free stun. A lot of hunters will try to bait it out of you. You get 2 chances, and they're on such a low cooldown. Like, you think it's high, but it's not. It's actually quite low. And he can give it to other survivors as well. I think that Lucino is like pretty strong. And now that he can block abilities like and cats, he can block the stun from Anne. That's crazy. Like, that invalidates one of her jumps. That like one of the things that make her super strong. But there's some things that he can get around. Like some hunters that can get around him, especially things that like kind of make it hard for him to catch. He gets a free chip hit. So like Bonbon that chases Professor have really hard times trying to get him because he gets a free block for nothing. He doesn't even have to activate it. He just gets it. There's not a lot of downsides to Lucino. I think if he like puts down a scale, he gets a small decoding debuff, but it's not that big. And the scale that helps out survivors can actually save you a lot. Like it can save you hard if you're just really good with your timing. That's assuming you're good with your timing. Antiquarian, I don't know, dude. I think Antiquarian, she's definitely A tier at least. I thought about putting her into S tier, but recently there have been like so many hunters that just straight up beat her. If you do Antiquarian properly, she's S tier. If you do her poorly, I would still give her A tier. Yeah, like if you get hit by Antiquarian 3 times, that's like a what, 16 seconds? Like her smacks, like it's 16 seconds of free kiting. Like 60 seconds for free against like a Geisha or like a Hellenber or like a even like a gamekeeper that doesn't have presence or like a Jack or against like any of these hunters right here. If she just locks you down, you're kind of cooked. Like she's definitely strong, but the thing is like more often than not, hunters bait out her hits. But if you're an Antiquarian and you play her properly, I feel like there's a way to make it so you don't mess up your hits. It just depends on how well you play her. In that peak tier, Antiquarian in theory is like one of the best survivors because of how good her lockdown is. Yeah, she just like the gate thing, yeah, it's kind of whatever. She has no decoding debuff. She just kind of goes ham. Composer, I would just put him in the same place as Prisoner. I don't know if he's like better or worse than Prisoner. After playing both these characters extensively, I would still put them both in A tier. He's fast. I mean, he's got his one escape thing. He decodes at 20%. Plus 20% is a lot. He's kind of hard to catch. Like, he's pretty hard to catch. Things that Prisoner Stun doesn't work on, Composer works on better. Like, if you try to chase him and you're like, I don't know, a violinist or a wax artist, he'll just out-rotate you. Like, Prisoner doesn't have the speed to out-rotate someone, but Composer definitely does. Like, if there's anyone who can rotate early, it's Composer. If you have, like, a Seer that sees who they are early, you can just be like, by the way, Composer, they're on their way. And unless you're, like, a Breaking Wheel, a Geisha, a Percy, or something like that that's super fast, he's gonna out-rotate you. 100%. It all depends on, like, how much early knowledge you have. But yeah, his decoding is, like, slightly better than Prisoner's. He's just faster. I don't know. I would say Prisoner's versatility, like his gimmick, is stronger than Composer's. But yeah, Composer is still pretty good. He's underrated. Yeah, I think he's just underrated. Journalist, I would give A tier, but under Andrew. I would say she's better than Coordinator, but worse than Gravekeeper. She gets cooked by certain hunters, but her doofy is like almost guaranteed rescuing. If you're a crazy journalist, a good journalist is crazy strong, right? Like, because she can body block from pretty far away with a doofy. That's like how crazy that is amazing. If you're a really, really good journalist, you can make her work. Like, I'm pretty sure people have seen me play Alice really well. Or not really well, but like decently. And placing those body blocks like right when the hunter swings, especially for slower attacking hunters, is actually not that hard. If it's a Hullabaloo, journalist is cooked. Yeah, I mean, like if it's Hullabaloo, a lot of these top tier survivors would probably get cooked. Like you can just lock down Antiquarian with your red ball, or you can lock down Prospector with red ball and slow him down. Like Hullabaloo is just kind of a crazy hunter. There's not a lot of people that like can beat Hullabaloo. That's why they're the S tier hunters. But I'll make my hunter tier list afterwards, and we'll talk about that later. Aeroplanist, I would put A tier. He's kind of crazy. Like his boosting, he can do it like 3 times, I think. One is a get out of jail free card, depending on how well you do it. He's like a pretty decent rescuer. He's a pretty decent kiter, and he's one of the few rescuers that don't have like a huge decoding speed debuff. Patience S tier, yeah, because his dashes aren't exactly get out of jail free, there's one that propels you forward. Like the thing about patience hooks, you can hook up and climb on top of things. It'll give you over objects 3 times. But Charles can only do it once. That still makes him pretty good. Like that makes him pretty good as a rescuer. He's really good at like getting away as much as Andrew is or as much as Journalist is. I might put like and he can still get terror shocked like quite easily, especially against double hit hunters. Like if you just have like he's not Journalist will save you from a Hell Ember, maybe if you just like force the doofy hit, but Aeroplanist might get double hit. Or like Gravekeeper might get double hit here. So there's different situations where like these rescuers can do their job properly, but against different hunters. Like Gravekeeper might be really good against Fool's Gold because he can get right up to the chair and he's got super fast rescuing time. But it's not like Fool's Gold is really good against Journalists because you can just get rid of the doofy before he actually touches the chair, or like before you rescue, because it knocks you off the rescue animation. So these 3 are kind of like all in the same area. Cheerleader, I would say is A tier, like middle of A tier. I don't think Cheerleader is like super great. Yes, her beep beeps work out really well. I don't think her beep beeps are like that great. She gets 2 of them, and the slowdown will get you cooked by a lot of hunters. I don't even know who she's that good against. Like Naiad, I guess she's good against. Dreamwitch, she's pretty good against. She's too easy to catch with her slowdown. Clerk will catch up really fast, and will catch up really fast. And when you slow down, it makes you an easy target for a lot of like sniping hunters. For example, like Violinist, Bonbon, Violetta, Jack, like they'll just hit you from across the map because you can't dodge it if you're too slow. Her support is like okay, but it's pretty situational. Because like refreshing does nothing for Psychologist, for Prisoner. A lot of these characters don't benefit from her refresh. It's kind of situational, although it's good. Her cheer supporting ability is actually quite strong, but it's a little risky because you have to get very, very close to do it. And a lot of hunters will get a bonus hit for you. So at the very least, you can force like another hit. I don't think she's weak, but I don't think she's S tier. Dang, this A tier slot is looking kind of wide. There's a lot of A tiers. Puppateer, I would say like A tier as well. She's kind of the same category as like Cheerleader, but maybe like upper A tier, because like Puppateer is really, really good. The thing is, he has a lot of really hard counters. Like Wax Artist counters him really hard. Bonbon counters him really hard. And kind of counters him if she silences you. Like he's really, really good against certain hunters, but really, really bad against some other hunters. So I would put him in S if he was like there are like some really good things about him. For example, he can take detention hits. Not a lot of survivors can take detention hits. More often than not, you can bait out the hits. And I'm not saying like it's easier to bait out Matthias hits than it is to bait out Professor hits. Because if you bait out a Professor hit and he's by a pallet already, he can drop the pallet. But if you bait out a Matthias hit, he's already taken the chip damage. So it's harder to recover from that than it is for like Professor, who doesn't really have to risk a health state. If you miss, like you miss. And you can turn it on a second time too, for free. And I'm pretty sure if you do miss as Professor, you get a reduced cooldown on your ability. His healing is really, really bad. It's good in certain situations. If like you prime someone, you can just like heal up half a health state, but it's kind of bad in other situations. Yeah, Lewis and Matthias, I feel like they're just really, really good against certain hunters and really, really bad against certain others. So I don't think he necessarily belongs in S tier. Rebound off chair detention hit. He can't rebound because if you're at half health and if you use Lewis, it gives you 3/4 of a full health, and then you only get 1 chip, so a detention hit will still down him. I would put him in S tier if there weren't so many hunters that can deal with it. Because like I said, Wax Artist can just stun him out and can silence him. Bonbon, like most chip hunters can deal with him pretty easily. Like Galatea, if she gets a chip on him, like you're gonna have to pop the Lewises really easily. Finn, I would say, is S tier. Honestly, these balls are kind of crazy. Finn balls are kind of crazy. He's hidden OP in my opinion. Finn was my first S badge character that I went for, and he's really strong. Like A lot of people don't think Finn is strong, but I think he's kind of crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if he's played a lot in Koa. He's even good against some of the upper tier hunters. Like he's pretty good against Ivy, I would say. Yeah, his ability to rotate and also help other survivors rotate is really, really good. Like, did you see the amount of times like people try to get survivors down to basement? If you just force them to drop one way or another, he buys so much time. If you break two balls, he's useless. Yeah, but you have to break two of his balls. And if he uses a ball, that's pretty much a free transition to anywhere you want because of the speed boost. And then they have to break the ball. Like, so he gets two free transitions to anywhere he wants. I think that makes him really, really powerful. And once you break the balls, like, if you do get rid of his balls and chase him down, that's probably a 3-cipher kite. I've never not 3-cipher kited, I think. Unless I mess up super hard with Finn. And if you don't break the balls, they become infinite loops in a lot of cases. He's just really good against certain hunters, like most hunters, I would say. There aren't a lot of people that can beat him. Is he better than Anti, though? Yeah. Like, his decoding debuff is only 5% too. He's pretty strong. Faro Lady, I would say is A tier. After her buffs, I would probably give her A tier. I don't know, like these, I've stacked up the rescuers on top of each other, but I've also stacked up the decoders on top of each other. I don't think Pharaoh's S tier. If Anne lands a cat on her, like she's cooked. I mean, like when I play Anne against a Pharaoh Lady, she's just like absolutely doomed. Because Pharaoh Lady is like, she's not S tier for sure. She's definitely annoying to chase, and she definitely beats out a lot of people. But like, if you listen closely to a Pharaoh Lady while she's on top of you, you can tell which direction she's going. And there are so many times where I just hit her out of her cloak. Invisibility ability. I feel like it's a little too easy to do it. If they made her footsteps silent while she's in her invisibility, I think she would be really, really good. But if you're careful about chasing a Pharaoh Lady, she's really easy to catch. Yeah, there's a lot of characters that are just good at catching her too. Like Violetta, if you get a web on you, you're revealed while you're invisible. Hermit just has to shoot in your general area, and that just straight up reveals you. I think Hullabaloo turns it off too with red. There's just a lot of hunters that can beat out Pharaoh Lady, but that doesn't mean there aren't a lot of hunters that she counters either. Like if she goes invisible, Clerk can't record. Yeah, like if Wax Artist chases Pharaoh, you can just shoot everywhere and you'll hit her for sure. Like he has too much wax for it to be spread out. She's probably pretty good against Night. Like Pharaoh Lady, she's not bad. She's definitely good, but she's not super, super good that you can work against everyone. Like notice how a lot of the decoders, they all have enough downsides to not be an S tier. Knight, I think Knight deserves S tier. Honestly, Knight's kind of crazy. I feel like a lot of people, he's so like coin flippy sometimes if you're not good at the mind game. But I think Richard is probably one of the best rescuers. I'd put him up here. He's a better rescuer than these three. But I don't know if he's better than First Officer. Like, being able to rescue from afar is kind of crazy. I've never, ever terror shocked a knight while they're trying to rescue from a range. I don't even know if it's possible. They showed it in the video, but, like, I did it while he's doing it, the animation, and it's still not terror shock somehow. He gets a free tide, so he doesn't need Tide Turner, if you know what I'm saying. He has the helmets that can cut off the hunter's abilities. If he guesses right twice, like he's kind of crazy. Honestly, if he gets 3 of them, that's 6 guesses. And a lot of hunters, like you can kind of force them to guess a certain way. Like Jack, you don't have to guess anything but attack. You'll guess right every single time if you just guess attack. Or if you guess like 1 attack and 1 stalemate, you can do that too. Like if you think a lizard will, you can force a lizard to jump if you just guess attack. Because then they'll have to jump, and then they'll overshoot themselves at the start. Or if you don't want to get double hit by a Lucino, you can just guess 2 jumps, and then he'll have to hit you before you get to chair. Like, Knight is so, so good. I wish I played Knight.Maybe I'll play Knight next season. We need a dedicated rescuer anyways. I just feel like Knight is super duper good. He's banned a lot, too. He's like a good kiter. His decoding speed is like meh. I haven't really looked at it specifically, but his rescuing is like, oof, delicious. It's good tier. And then the last one is Meteorologist. So, all right, I haven't seen her yet, but if I were to guess, just based on her abilities, she looks like an S tier. I would say she looks like an S tier. She's not, I don't know if she's actually S. I don't know exactly if she is S, but I would say at the very least, she's A. Meteorologist players are so good, actually. Yeah, because, like, have you seen those TikTok videos of her just, like, she can go up the second platform. She can go off the second platform and into 2-story. Who can do that? Meteorologist is S tier. There's no way she's not S tier. Like, she is absolutely insane as a character. She has AoE healing, which is kind of crazy. She can't go into 2-story. I think I've seen it on TikTok before. I don't know if it's real or not. But she can do a lot of crazy things. They nerfed it? Oh, I didn't know they nerfed it. They might nerf it again, honestly, because she's not available in rank. The healing takes forever. Can you do the healing while decoding? Like, there's a lot of... I haven't played her exactly, but, like, in theory, I think she's incredibly strong. Like, I'll put her here tentatively, but again, like, she hasn't been in ranked yet. She isn't going to be available for another week and a half, but I didn't want to put off delaying this tier list until, like, 2 weeks later. I think I'll just, like, put her here for now until people figure her out. But, a lot of people thought Finn was mid until, like, a couple people started playing Finn. Like, I used to play Finn before when people were calling him mid, and he's S tier now on my list. There was a lot of people thought that, like, some of these survivors were on the weaker side before, like, I'm pretty sure Zeus thought Knight was mid before, like, people started playing him. But I think that, like, this is a pretty good tier list on my part. And keep in mind, a lot of these survivors, I might have a little bit of bias. Like, obviously, everyone has a little bit of bias, especially based on what characters they play on Hunter and Survivor side. So because I'm a Clerk main or, like, an Ann player or, like, a Hermit player, there are certain survivors that I'm going to think are going to be stronger than others. Especially, like, if you're a Hullabaloo main and you're a Goatman main or you're an Opera Singer main or you're an Ivy main, like, a lot of these things, like, oh, wow, I play only Ivy. Of course, you're not going to think Batter is a very good character. But, like, if you're anybody else, Batter is kind of a menace. So there is going to be a little bit of bias here, but this is my, like, general tier list for ranking. Team or not. Hey, everyone. Thank you for watching. And if you liked that video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and hit the notification bell for more. Also, a huge shout out to my patrons who help keep my channel going. Love you all, and see you next time.